Welcome to the Jewish Education Experience podcast with your hosts, Yasmina and Ari, who will be uncovering gems of wisdom with Jewish educators from around the world.
To our audience, thank you so much. We really appreciate your support, and we appreciate you sharing our podcast with others also. Please consider supporting our podcast financially by contributing via Zelle, jewisheducationpodcast@gmail.com, or by joining our Patreon community, www.patreon.com/Jewish Education Experience Podcast. And to all of you Jewish educators and students of Jewish education around the world, chizchu ve'imtzu. May you be strengthened and encouraged in your holy endeavors. Our guest today is Yael Nehama Respes, who is a Montessori teacher. She has been teaching for well over 20 years. Hello, Yael.
Hi, Yasmina.
Welcome to our podcast, and thank you for being here today. We're so excited, and this is a really special one because Yael happens to be married to my dad, who we also interviewed in this podcast, so it's very cool to have some family connections here.
It's really exciting to be here. I'm excited to be part of your podcast. What a great idea to bring in Jewish educators and bring more light into the world and inform the general universe of all the wonderful things that are happening in Jewish education. So thank you. Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
We're excited.
Okay, well, let's get started. Will you please tell us a bit more about yourself and how you began your journey in education?
Okay, so how I began my journey in education is by becoming a mother. I'm a mother of 3, and as my children were growing up, I had to make those decisions on where they were going to go, where they were going to go to school. Where I lived, the public schools were not acceptable, for at least in my opinion, and the private schools were way out of my reach financially. So that was a dilemma, and I had a friend who happened to be a homeschooler, and so she suggested to me, why don't I homeschool my children? Which of course was met with my, like, what? Is that a thing? Is that legal? Can we do that? So I looked into it, and it was yes to everything. So I decided that why not? I had been already teaching religious school, Sunday school. So if I could teach other people's children's, Sunday school, I should be able to at least teach my children. And homeschooling has its own challenges, so it isn't like being in the classroom. But it was a great starting point for me. So I became very familiar with different curriculums and how to incorporate that into my life and into our life as a mother, and then now all of a sudden teacher. I did that for some years, and then had the opportunity to put my children in private school, so they did go to private school for a little bit. So we, homeschooled and did private school. Then as they grew up, I didn't really know what to do with myself because they were now, grown, and I needed to make some choices with my own career. And after having tried some other careers, I was a dental assistant for a little while. I wore a couple different hats. I decided to go into education. So I went to school at an older age, and I got my degree in early childhood education, and discovered the Montessori pedagogy, and fell kind of head over heels in love with that because that felt very, very natural, and it was very much like how I was homeschooling when I did homeschool. So that was sort of the beginning. It was sort of an accidental falling into education because my children grew up and I still wanted to be around kids.
So would you say it was Montessori that was someone you admired, or was there anyone else that you admired?
Maria Montessori, she really was an amazing woman. She was a scientist, and she saw a need in Italy, particularly with children who were orphans and special needs, and she had deep respect for the children, and that was something that I had always felt. I always felt that my children were amazing, and I think every mother feels the same way.
It's true.
Yeah, right. We do. We realize how amazing and how capable they are. And Maria Montessori, as a true scientist, saw that these children were amazing and capable, and she created these wonderful materials that the children could use. She first, she incorporated the practical life area, teaching them how to do practical things, pouring, spooning, tonguing. She created the base 10 sensorial materials that are in every Montessori classroom, the pink cubes and the broad stare and all the classic Montessori materials. And on top of that, grace and courtesy, independence, all these beautiful things that are in a Montessori classroom. It's just very respectful, following the child, seeing what inspires the child and then being there to help them. It was not teacher centric. It was child centric, and it's beautiful, and that really inspired me a lot, as you can see.
I'm extra excited to get into the Montessori stuff for this one. And now I'm really wondering with this next question, to hear, I guess, maybe the Montessori inspiration, or maybe if that applies or maybe it doesn't. How do you talk about God with your students, and how might this differ with the various age groups that you teach?
So that is actually a really great question with the Montessori classroom, because I don't know if your audience realizes or how familiar they are with Montessori education, but Montessori is set up in multi-age classrooms. So you have the toddler program, the primary, and then elementary, and it's 3 ages. So I'm a primary teacher, so in my classroom I have children who are ages 3 to 6 years old. And as we know, developmentally there's a big difference between 3-year-olds and 6-year-olds. The beautiful thing about that setup is that you have them for 3 years, sometimes 4. So you are building each year a relationship. Number one, it's very relationship centric. And number 2, they are becoming more and more familiar with what's in the classroom. They start to build on what's the basics, and they have these extensions. Now, when it comes to talking about Hashem and teaching about Hashem, it's much like how we as Jews, we read the same parsha every year, right? We read, Bereshit, Bara, Elokim. Every year we read the same thing, and every year we discover something new. So it's the same thing that happens in the classroom. The children are working with things. They learn the parsha. They learn what it means to be a leader in the classroom. They learn their relationship in the davening deepens. Their conversations that they had last year become more inquisitive. I had, for example, one of my 4-year-olds this year. Last year, we were talking about, we're going through Breshit, right? And we had talked about Noach, and we're into Lech Lecha. So last year she had learned it. This year she learned it, and this year she made this connection between when we were talking about Sodom and how Lot was and his family were the only ones that were coming out of Sodom. She was like, she looked at me. She's like, "Oh, Mara, it's like Noach." And I was like, wow, she made the connection between these 2 parshiot. So it's a very natural, I think the Montessori education very naturally fits into the Jewish paradigm and how we see the world, building, line upon line, precept upon precept. That's just what we do as Jews.
You've taught me a lot about the Montessori model, so we've been trying to incorporate it with our own kids.
Well,
and I'm just curious too, because typically most schools are set up, 3-year-olds are in this class, 4-year-olds are in this class, and 5-year-olds are in this class. Sometimes you see that there's a bit of competition in classrooms because it's all kids of the same ages. How do you think the Montessori model maybe fixes that,
Well, because what happens is that each year, like, your little ones come in. So you have your new batch of 3-year-olds, and this is all very new, and they're usually either become observers in the classroom, or they just sort of become single focused because they're just moving from parallel play into, playing as a group. All right, so 3-year-olds are in that transitional spot. So that's how they fit in. What happens is with your 4-year-olds and your 5-year-olds, they start to, because you've taught them this, you've modeled it, I should say. We're not teaching them, we're modeling what we want them to do. They start giving lessons. So they start guiding. They become guides in the classroom as well.
Okay.
And they start guiding the little ones. Much like in a family situation where the older children will, the little children, the younger siblings watch the older siblings guide the younger siblings. And this is what happens in a Montessori classroom. You create an environment of community where the older students will guide the younger ones. They want to guide. It is a beautiful thing to see. I have, my older children help them put on their jackets, help them to zip.
It's so sweet.
It is. It's really sweet. They show them, this is how we roll the rugs. Roll it like this, Oh, the work doesn't go here. It goes over here. And that's what you want. There's a quote by Maria Montessori, and I can't remember it exactly, but it's basically the gist is that, when a successful guide is when you can look at the classroom and see that the children are moving about the classroom as if you're not even there. And that's what you want, right? And isn't that what Hashem said, he gave us this gift of the Torah so that we should be able to live this life, It's a guide. And so I kind of feel like it just parallels into that,
I think so.
Well, we may have to find that quote and put it down in the show notes. So.
Yes.
For sure.
Yeah.
Since you have all this background with Montessori and everything, how does that determine, or what would you say Jewish education means to you? How do you define that?
So it's interesting, right? That's actually, because especially with Montessori, because Montessori actually started out in a lot of Catholic schools, because it's in Italy, right? So, so we have sort of appropriated it, maybe. I don't know. We see the jewels and the gems in the Montessori and the value in the Montessori education. So there's a lot of Jewish Montessori schools. So the question was again, how
do you define education? How would you define it?
How do I define education? So how do I define education? Education is modeling what we hope, defining education. Education is, it's not just teaching, it's modeling, it's living your life to help and support the younger generation to live a better life than you did, right? That's what education is to me. It is not just spewing information at the children. I learn as much from them, and this is not cliche. I do learn as much from them as I hope to give to them. I'm not there to just give them information. I'm there to sort of inspire them. I want to inspire them. I want to blow wind on that spark, that how they say in Yiddish, that pintele yid. I want to blow wind on that spark, that neshama, and let it blaze and get them excited about things. Like in the classroom, we have the prepared environment. So we have things that should draw them in, should excite them. When I'm teaching Parsha, I want them to come away from that, not just knowing the Parsha, but being excited about the Parsha. Like actually being excited that this is part of their heritage and actually learning a love for Hashem. Like I want the children to come out of my classroom truly loving Hashem and loving Judaism and loving the Torah and just seeing it as that they are part of this wonderful, wonderful, story that Hashem has been telling from the beginning, till Moshiach, please soon.
Amen. Yeah, actually, I think it's a really great answer too, because believe it or not, one of these quotes that I have written down here on my favorite quotes thing is a Montessori quote that she says, "Early childhood education is the key to the betterment of society."
Yes, yes.
It's kind of, it's like a much bigger picture. It's like the kids, we want society to keep improving and like moving towards
absolutely
Mashiach.
Yeah.
And so, is that the goal? I mean, the Hebrew word is chinuch, right? So isn't that the goal of what we're supposed to be doing as educators, and we want to inspire our kids and help them to. We want to plant those seeds.
Right.
We want to continue
and to
that
keep basically
connection.
refining the human being. Obviously, society, it starts with human beings, so that's what she's saying is.
And to sort of further that seed metaphor, we need to be responsible gardeners, because we can't water too much, we can't fertilize too much, we can't, we want to make sure there's enough sun, enough shade, enough water. So you have to be responsible.
But as we keep refining, maybe it'll be like hydroponics. We'll have timers and everything will be perfect.
We still need that human touch always.
Right.
So I know as an educator, we have lots of challenges. What would you say has been your biggest challenge as an educator?
I think it's probably the challenge of anyone who works with children remembering to keep your ego out. Like, the biggest challenge is the constant reminder that it's not about you, it is always about them. So on days where the children have, they've decided that they've had enough of circle time, you need to take them outside. When they've decided that maybe today's not the day that they want to necessarily work with this, we're going to go there. You may have a plan. You need to be able to be willing to just put that plan aside, because it's not about you. It is always about the children. So keeping ego at bay and remembering that this is about the children and following the children and not following your own desires.
So would you say that your specific style of Montessori, Jewish Montessori, is more child-centered or God-centered?
Ooh, what a great question. That's a great question. It is seeing the divine within the child. That is definitely, I honestly am looking at the divine within that child. I do take that very seriously, and speaking to the person that they, please God, will grow into. Yes.
Right,
So seeing the divine within them. Yeah.
Right, which I would say is a very unique aspect of the Jewish Montessori. Like, it's a great combination.
Yes, yeah, knowing that they're, yes, exactly, because that neshama is what you're speaking to. Yeah, absolutely.
So that's a gem. I sense that was a gem. We'll have to distill that one out for the audience.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's a big challenge. How do you stay motivated as an educator?
Well, constantly educating yourself. I mean, there are there's a lot of resources on YouTube, reading books, not just educational books, but books, that inspire my own learning, seeing, one of the biggest ways of staying inspired is like during the school year when I'm teaching Parsha. Of course, I have to learn Parsha. So seeing the, what's in there. And since I'm giving it over to children, really seeing the Pashat, but not oversimplifying it, because children are not, they can handle wonderful, they actually bring out a lot of great concepts. So, learning and then giving it over in such a way that it's exciting and meaningful, and not just droning, like in this week's Parsha, blah, blah, blah. No, it has to be very exciting. And
now, are you up to date? Are there continuing education, I guess, like for Montessori? Like,
absolutely.
Do you review
There's
older
so
stuff?
Many. I review older stuff, but there is so much available online. Some great resources. Trillium Montessori is one of my favorite go-tos. There are a bunch of different Montessori, which I can, like, if you want resources, I can definitely get you. I can get you some resources, absolutely.
And how do you tie in, I guess, with other educators? You know what I mean? How do you
connect with educators?
Connect and build
groups
that
on
community?
Facebook. Okay. Facebook is a great resource. I have, Instagram. I actually started a separate Instagram from my personal Instagram, which I haven't been terribly active on lately, but it was, it's more of an educator Instagram that I connect with other educators.
So pictures, you're putting pictures of
like pictures and things that inspire me, and we inspire each other. Or things
important.
that make you laugh,
Right.
like, funny quotes you hear in school, or now with these, the new mandates with, the children wearing masks. Like, are your children wearing masks? No, my child is, our students are like swinging them over their head. And,
well, I'm so curious. I mean, what do you think Montessori would say herself with this COVID stuff? I mean,
I can't even venture a guess with that. I can't even venture a guess.
Yeah, that adds its own challenge.
Yeah, it does, actually. It does add its own challenge, but...
We'll make it through, God willing.
Amen.
Yes.
Absolutely.
But it is important as educators that we connect with each other, because it's hard working with children, and sometimes you put your all into the kids that you teach, and sometimes you can feel like you're getting burnt out, so you need that.
So that is the responsibility you have to take that responsibility, self-care. What does that look like? It looks like when in the classroom, if say I'm finding a situation where it's, obviously we use nonviolent communication in the classroom, and we have a very strong peaceful mission statement in the classroom. So when I'm speaking to a child, but 3-year-olds, they're gonna tantrum. And what if I feel like I'm becoming like, I don't know what to do. I've done everything. I've spoken. I've tried to comfort, and that's when you sort of have to allow others to come in. That's why you have an assistant. That's when you say, okay, honey, I'm gonna help you sit at the peace corner, and I'm Maura's gonna walk away a little bit. And I think that's okay to say that to children. I think they need to know that you also have, you're a human being, so sometimes we are I'm going to sit over here. I'm not leaving you, but I'm going to let you, have some time. And when you're ready, you come talk to Maura, and, but I'm right here. I think that's the most important thing, is knowing also your limits, and being able to express those in respectful ways to the children, obviously never abandoning the child, and never abandoning yourself. You can't abandon your own needs, you know?
Okay, well, so obviously you're very experienced and very good as an educator, but what advice would you give to new educators who may just be beginning their journeys?
Ooh, don't take yourself too seriously. Breathe. I'm serious.
Like
breathe.
Meditative stuff?
Yeah,
or...
really learn to breathe. That's how I transition in the classroom. When I move, that's something I actually learned from Waldorf education. They have this concept of breathing in and breathing out. And so I also learned from other pedagogies. Right. Reggio and Waldorf are also, they would run second and third in my favorites after Montessori. Okay. So this idea of breathing in and out. So I use a chime when I transition.
You start your davening like that,
with
right?
a chime, with meditation. Yeah, with a meditation. Yeah. So when I transition with the children, I have a chime that has 3 bells on it, and I ring ding, 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 and then I ring the second one ding. In the beginning of the school year, I do a lot of singing, so I would, I sing to your children. That's a very important thing when you're starting out your journey. Okay. So I sing, put your work down, hands on your heart, eyes on me. And the children learn to put their work down, put their hands on their heart, so that centers them. And they look, and then they wait to see what's going to happen. Are we transitioning, or do I need to speak to a couple? I might be calling a group for another reason. Usually it's a transition, so I sing my Twinkle Twinkle Little Star cleanup and song, and then they put things away. When we start davening, I say, are we sitting on the line? Yes, we are. Do we have pretzel legs? Yes, we do. Roll your shoulders back. Take a deep breath in. And then I ring the chime. Wow. And then we're quiet. And we start with 10 seconds at the beginning of the school year. And we work all the way up to an entire minute of silence. That's another Montessori thing where we play the silent game, and they take a bell and they pass it. So the children learn to be quiet and learn to, quiet themselves. So those, for me, when I first started out, that was probably one of the most important things, was learning to bring quiet into the classroom, bring quiet to myself, don't take myself too seriously, and pray. I'm not even kidding you. Learn to pray the entire day. Hashem, help me on this one. I need some guidance.
Wow, that is so great. Because I remember growing up, the chime we heard was the one at the end of the period when we would just run out.
And then you're just running, right? And that wasn't even a chime; it was a buzzer, right? We're out.
Freedom.
Exactly. This is more of a okay. We're still here, you know. And I in the beginning of the class, in the beginning of the school year, I just ring the chime to practice, you know, because you have to practice with children. You can't expect them to learn it like that,
right?
You know.
And I feel like that's a gem that we could all use, like. You know,
right? I love the Montessori model just in general with how even as parents, you know, how you can take care of your kids and make sure you're your kids.
There's a lot of moms that like use Montessori in their own homes, like even setting up bedrooms, you know, allowing children independence. So they'll bring the closets down. So with Montessori, everything is child level, everything, and we use real things. So the children are using knives, they're using glass. Is it going to break? Yep, that's the whole point, because then they realize, like, I have to be careful with this or it's going to break. And that's what you're there is to help them, you know, clean up, make sure that they don't get hurt. We're protecting them, but they need to learn. They need to learn these things. So with Montessori moms, when they will, you know, put a closet, they'll make the bar really low so that the children can reach it, but you have to remove a lot of the clothing. You want your child to have independence and choose, but you don't want to overwhelm them. So you're going to leave only 3 choices.
Wow, that's a great gem right there.
Yeah.
It's too much choice just makes you can't do anything.
Because it's overwhelming, isn't it? Right. So like a lot of times parents are like, well, I want that they want to choose their own clothing. That's amazing. Let them choose their own clothing, but remove like 2/3 of it. Let them only have 3 choices so that they're making their choices, but they're not tearing apart their wardrobe and with clothes everywhere. So that you have to make this workable within your life. That's how we do in the classroom. Like I have in the beginning of the class year, there's very little out on the shelves because they need to learn. They're learning to choose things. So I have very little out. And then as each week goes by, I add a little bit more so that they have more choices, but they're not overwhelmed at the beginning of the school year. A Montessori classroom is also set up with very little stimuli, like not a lot of bright. We don't use bright colors in the classroom. We don't have like little, you know, the posters everywhere. It's all natural. We have plants. We have the material. We have beautiful things, you know, that inspire them. So I'll keep it simple early when you're starting in your education. Young educators, keep it simple. Kiss, right? Keep it simple, sweetie. Keep it simple.
So you mentioned before when you talk about Parsha and everything with your students, how do you think we can help our students really build that proper Torah foundation so that they're prepared as they get older, they go out into the world and they meet some of the challenges that they're going to face?
Instill a love for it.
Have that really love.
Instill that love. Like you have to love it. If you love it, they will love it. I have to say, one of the biggest sources of pride for myself is when the parents come to me and they say, you know, my child really knew Parsha. And that gives me a lot of pride because that love that I have for teaching has now spilled over onto them and they're excited. You know, if I was just saying, you know, giving it over and it wasn't exciting for me, then it's not going to be exciting for them. So it has to be real to you. So it goes back to what you were saying. Like you have to, what you were saying is that you have to really, you have to begin with yourself. Everything has to come with you. You have to do your self-care. You have to be the one who's educating yourself. You have to be taking care of yourself, and that will naturally overflow from you to the children, and they will receive that. They will receive it because children can. They can spot fakes, they can spot phonies, they can spot what's not real. And if they sense in any way, shape, or form that this is not coming from a deep, passionate love from you, it's just not going to be as meaningful to them. But if they see that you are like you love what's happening, you love telling the story, you love giving it over to them, they're going to take that home with them. And they're going to be sitting at the Shabbat table, and they're going to be participating with their older siblings, because that's what I hear. You know, the younger ones are just like, they're excited and they're interrupting and they want to talk about the Parsha too,
So when you say
Sure.
that you daven, you pray, are you doing that in front of the kids sometimes so that they can see what that's like?
It's fun. That's a very good. Yeah, I sometimes they'll see me that I just like close my eyes and I'm quiet and they'll say, "What are you doing?" And I'll say, "I'm talking to Hashem right now." And sometimes when we're at the circle, I will, if say like they're having a hard time, I'll say, "Okay, Hashem, help me out, help me to help the friends sit quietly," and they're like, "Oh." They'll sit quietly, and then I find that they're doing it. They will do it. They, because they see me do it. So, one of the things I've started doing is telling them. They'll say, "Oh, this happened." I'm like, "Well, so say thank you to Hashem. Tell Hashem thank you." And they're like, "Oh, thank you Hashem for this wonderful thing that just happened," or "Thank you Hashem for my new baby brother," or "Thank you Hashem that my mommy put challah in my lunchbox." Like thank Hashem for these things. So they start picking up that practice. Again,
it
it's becoming
them develop that connection, and they see you.
Mm-hmm.
You're taking the time to thank Hashem or to pray to Hashem, and they see, oh well, Mora's doing that. She can directly go to Hashem. She can directly pray to Hashem.
Mm-hmm.
Well, she can do it. I can do it, and
Mm-hmm.
so they start to. It's so nice.
and it's very simple.
Right.
I mean, it's obviously not some big grand, and I'm not complaining in front of the children, and just like I often say, just help me. Help
Right.
me.
Well, I do that as a parent sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, sure. It's good for them. It's good.
All right. Well, this is the final question that we have for you. What does successful Jewish education in the future look like to you?
Wow, that is the question, isn't it? I guess, again, it goes back to what I was saying earlier, is just successful Jewish education is helping our children to know who they are as Jews, to love who they are as Jews, and to understand that, what it means to be a Jew, their relationship with the divine, with Hashem, their relationship with their fellow Jew, their fellow man, the world at large. And to really taking that mandate from Yeshayahu, from Isaiah, that says to be a light, to the nations, and what does that mean? And just allowing, themselves, who they are and how beautiful they are to shine forth. I believe the wholeness of their humanity is within them, even as children. So that's who I speak to. That wholeness of the of who they will become. They're just small young people. They've only been on the planet for 3, 4, 5 years. So, but who they are is already inside of them. Right.
So that is just such a great answer. And I actually have a bonus question here
Ooh.
that I thought of.
Ding, ding, ding! Bonus questions.
Yeah. So when does Montessori end? Because obviously, like, as the kids get older, and in Judaism you have 12, 13, bar bat mitzvah, and then there's even more responsibility. So is there Montessori for the older kids?
There's Montessori elementary, and I think Montessori high schools, they tend to, I don't know much about them, I'll be honest. I don't know much about them. The most successful schools have been the Montessori primary schools, because you're setting up that foundation. And they transition well into the traditional Jewish schools that they have.
But they also transition well into lots of things.
That's true, exactly. I mean, okay, looking at what does the Montessori pedagogy give you? Gives you independent children. It gives you children who are mindful, have a strong peace statement, who know how to communicate, and know how to move about their world.
Right.
And they take responsibility for what they're learning to take responsibility for what they're doing. So that's foundationally what Montessori is. Because if you took out all the cool Montessori materials and the and all the other practical life, sensorial, all that, you took it away, you would still have a philosophy which is very much based. Even if you took the woman Maria Montessori out of it, you still have this Torah philosophy, right? Because it says that you teach a child in their way, so that when they are old, they will not depart from it. That right? That's what it says in it's Proverbs. It says so. If you are teaching a child in their way, speaking to them, because what's good for one child isn't necessarily going to be the same for the other child. If you teach them in their way, when they are old, they will not depart from it. So there's the future of your Jewish education.
And the future of society. We want more people who are mindful and respectful and have all the wonderful characteristics that I think Montessori teaches. Mm-hmm. And it's so nice to see now that Montessori is being incorporated more in Jewish education in particular.
Right, because it is at its heart it is a very Torah based. Who knew? Torah based education. Yeah.
It also kind of speaks for itself. Like I know people I know that have gone through Montessori have always been very special people.
I mean, the founders of Google. Just saying. However you feel about Google, fact is, it's Google, and they were Montessori kids.
Wow, it's pretty amazing, actually.
I feel like there's a lot of others too.
Yeah.
There are. Those are the ones that came off the top of my head.
Well, Yael, we are so grateful that you took the time.
I'm honored to be here. Thank you so much.
Yeah, to share with us. We really learned some wonderful gems from you. And we always learn so much from you. So again, just thank you.
Yeah,
thank you.
And I'm thinking that chime you mentioned, we may need to get that chime for the jingle.
Yeah. Oh, fun. Okay.
But I guess we should also ask if there's anything else you wanted to add. No pressure.
Yeah, no, I think just be happy, be gentle with yourselves, be gentle with your children. Keep your ego at bay and breathe.
Sounds like a plan. And I guess we're lucky to have you as a mentor for us, because we're family. So
yay for family! And, got a lot of educators in this family.
Yeah, yes. Oh my gosh. And we do tend to, we want our guests to come back in the future. Hopefully, this podcast will see some more success and. We'll build up the studio and have some, loungers with some, microphone hanging from the ceiling, and that'll help. But we're definitely going to have you back at some point, and obviously we continue to talk to you off microphone. But we'll definitely have to do another episode at some point, even if it's just for us, but hopefully for a lot of other people too.
All right. Well, thanks so much. It was really nice being here.